I've spent my entire life bending over backwards to please others. As a kid, I obsessively sought my parents' approval by being the perfect, obedient daughter who got straight A's and never caused any trouble. I gave up sleepovers, hobbies, and friendships to ensure I never missed a chore or fell short of my parents' rigid expectations. The rare times I dared step out of line, like getting a B on an exam, I was grounded for weeks as punishment. My mother would sigh, "I expected more from you," while my father lectured me for hours on how my mistake had disappointed him greatly. The anxious knot in my stomach while awaiting their reactions to any minor imperfection reinforced the deeply ingrained message that my worth depended on meeting others' standards. As an adult, I stay stuck in toxic work dynamics or friendships, incapable of speaking up when mistreated out of terror of rocking the boat. I overlook thoughtless comments, take on extra duties without pay, and never challenge others' bad behavior to keep the peace. At jobs, I compulsively volunteer for every extra project to try to prove my indispensable value to managers and coworkers. But when I inevitably burn out from the workload, I'm discarded and criticized for not being a team player despite no one acknowledging or appreciating my heavy lifting when it was convenient for them. In friendships, I downplay my own feelings and needs so my friends can vent endlessly about their problems instead. Their drama and crises become my main priorities as I offer endless emotional labor, yet feel too guilty to share my troubles and risk being called a burden. I fiercely defend friends when others point out their harmful patterns, make excuses for their thoughtless behavior, and try to conceal their lies to protect their reputation. My desire to keep everyone happy and avoid conflict only seems to engender resentment, not reciprocal care. In relationships, I morph into whatever version of myself I believe my partner wants in order to earn love, even if it means abandoning my own needs and boundaries entirely. I obsess over being the perfect girlfriend. I cook elaborate meals, initiate intimacy when exhausted, cut off close friends at his request, quit hobbies that he feels threaten the relationship. His unpredictable outbursts and criticisms keep me walking on eggshells, desperately trying to be more patient, attentive, and accommodating so he'll reward me with affection again. I tell myself this is what true love requires: unconditional sacrifice. My seemingly selfless desire to anticipate everyone's needs and keep the peace at all costs has left close loved ones dubbing me a saint. But my people-pleasing tendencies actually stem from a deeply ingrained, subconscious belief that my worth hinges solely on gaining others' validation and appreciation. I feel fundamentally flawed and unlovable just being my authentic self. This pattern has attracted manipulative, often narcissistic personalities who expertly exploit my drive to serve and accommodate. My most recent relationship rapidly became a living nightmare. My ex continuously moved the goalposts for what good enough partner behavior meant, keeping me trapped in an exhausting cycle of hypervigilance as I frantically tried pleasing his every whim to earn scraps of love. One week, he insisted all good girlfriends initiate intimacy multiple times a day to prove their devotion. The next week, he recoiled from my touch, claiming my advances now felt smothering and desperate. When I cooked his favorite meal, he balked that I'd chosen such an unhealthy meal if I truly cared about his needs. When I switched to preparing only healthy options, he angrily accused me of trying to control his diet and called me abusive. No matter how I contorted myself, it was never enough. Once during dinner, I gently asked if we could make plans for my upcoming birthday. My ex slammed his fist on the table and seethed, "You're so effing self-centered. Always trying to make everything about you. My needs don't matter at all, do they?" I immediately apologized and promised I never meant to diminish his needs. But inside, his extreme reaction to such an innocuous request stung. When I dared make even the most basic requests, like asking him to pick up groceries when he was already out running errands, I was branded selfish for focusing on my own needs. If he was in a bad mood, anything I did being too quiet, too chatty, standing too near, giving him space provoked rage. Walking this relational tightrope utterly consumed me. I lost all sense of identity, morphing into an unrecognizable, depleted shell disconnected from any personal needs or boundaries I once had. Only after the relationship ended did I realize the astounding price I paid for believing my worth depended wholly on pleasing someone unable to be pleased. And he was far from the first narcissist attracted to me. My childhood programming set me up for a lifetime of predatory personalities who expertly leverage my desire to serve against me. I'm still struggling to silence that persistent inner critic who blames me for not accommodating others well enough when relationships inevitably unravel or turn toxic. I collapse into shame spirals, recounting all the ways I should have been more understanding, patient, and selfless. At times, the exhaustion of subconsciously performing emotional labor for others while denying my own vulnerability feels unbearable. How do I unlearn this compulsive habit of prioritizing everyone else's comfort over my own? Why can't I internalize that it's okay to honor my own needs and still be worthy of love? I'm desperate to break free of people-pleasing patterns before I lose my very soul, yet feel helpless to change such deeply embedded core beliefs about myself and relationships. My desire to be good has somehow become my own straitjacket, choking the life from me. There must be a healthier way for me to connect without abandoning myself in the process. But unraveling this complex wiring feels far beyond my grasp alone. Is it healthy to be a people-pleaser?
No, chronic people-pleasing is generally unhealthy, as it involves prioritizing others' needs at the expense of one's own boundaries and well-being. Key issues include loss of self, poor boundaries, repressed anger, and attracting abuse or manipulation.
What causes a person to be a people-pleaser?
Root causes often include childhood emotional neglect, conditional parental approval, codependency, low self-worth, and subconscious belief that love must be earned through accommodating others. Enmeshment, trauma bonding, and authoritarian upbringings can also contribute.
How do I know if I'm a people-pleaser?
Signs include inability to say no, continually sacrificing your needs for others, morphing into who others want, seeking external validation, avoiding conflict to keep the peace, feeling guilt when asserting needs. Look for one-sided relationships where you do all the emotional labor and give far more than you receive or feel able to ask for.
What is the psychology of people-pleasers?
People-pleasers have subconscious core beliefs that their worth, lovability, and value hinge solely on gaining others' approval. This manifests in compulsive caretaking, conflict avoidance, and lack of boundaries. Acts of service become the only pathway to affirmation.
Is people-pleasing a red flag?
Yes, the inability to set healthy boundaries or have needs met signals poor self-worth and vulnerability to manipulation or abuse. People-pleasing patterns must be addressed for relationship success. Listen to your gut around those who exploit your willingness to please.
Are people-pleasers emotionally intelligent?
Ironically, people-pleasers often have high cognitive empathy, as they can read others' needs well. But emotional intelligence requires intrapersonal and interpersonal skills. Lack of self-awareness around their motivations indicates lower emotional intelligence.
What are people-pleasers afraid of?
Rejection, judgment, criticism, disappointing others, damaging relationships, expressing needs wants, being seen as selfish, having boundaries violated, loss of external validation. At core, people-pleasers are terrified of abandonment if they cease accommodating others' demands.
Is being a people-pleaser a toxic behavior?
Yes. Self-abandonment and poor boundaries are toxic to the people-pleaser and attract abusive dynamics. But intention is not malicious, rather a sign of unhealed wounds. With self-work, underlying beliefs and behaviors can transform.
Is a people-pleaser insecure?
Yes, chronic external validation seeking indicates core insecurity and lack of stable self-worth or self-concept. Healthy self-esteem must come from within, not require constant external reinforcement.
What are people-pleasers good at?
High empathy, emotional intuition, caregiving, hospitality, reading subtleties in relationships, giving love care abundantly, being generous and thoughtful towards others' needs. When balanced with self-care, these can be wonderful gifts.
Do narcissists love people-pleasers?
Unfortunately, yes. People-pleasers are perfect targets for narcissistic manipulation and exploitation due to their lack of boundaries, empathy, and willingness to accommodate endlessly. Important to identify this dangerous dynamic.
What is the positive side of being a people pleaser?
At their healthiest, people pleasers embody compassion, thoughtfulness, generosity, and desire to alleviate suffering in those they care for. When balanced with self-care, these can be wonderful traits.
What kind of trauma causes people pleasing?
Childhood emotional neglect, engulfment, authoritarian conditional parenting, abuse, codependency patterns, attachment trauma. Adults may also develop it via repeated abuse manipulation that erodes self-concept.
What are the weaknesses of being a people pleaser?
Lack of identity, poor boundaries, repression of needs, wants, stunted self-worth, externalized validation seeking, inability to be direct or receive authentic love, not tied to acts of service.
What is the problem with people pleasers?
They abandon the self, attract abuse and manipulators who exploit compassion and reinforce core wounds around worth by remaining hostage to others' validation versus nurturing inner sources of love.
How do I stop people pleasing?
Get professional support to heal root wounds. Learn needs boundaries, practice saying no, detach from results, develop self-acceptance and inner validation skills, unload toxic dynamics that exploit you.
What personality type attracts narcissists?
Empaths, highly sensitive persons, SPs, people pleasers, and codependents attract narcissists. Lack of boundaries, self-sacrificing nature provide narcissistic supply. Listen to intuition around those who feel off.
Are people pleasing manipulative?
Not inherently, but it can manifest unhealthily as covert manipulation feigned as selflessness. Healthy people pleasing comes from a place of genuine care, not solely transactional.
Do people pleasers have depression?
Frequently, chronically abandoning needs and losing sense of self-seeking external validation exacts a heavy toll, including risk for anxiety, depression, and complex trauma. Get professional support.
Why are people pleasers annoying?
Their need for everyone's approval can manifest as over-accommodating, indirect communication, and muted authenticity. This breeds resentment when boundaries are unclear or enmeshment ensues.
Do people take advantage of people pleasers?
Sadly, yes. All boundaries attract users and abusers. Developing assertiveness, learning to say no, and recognizing red flags helps mitigate manipulation risks. Prioritize raising your self-worth.
How can I express my needs while still being thoughtful of others?
Be in tune with your needs. State them plainly early on. Judge no one, including yourself. Compromise when possible. When it's not, stand firm compassionately. Progress over perfection. The impacts of unhealed people pleasing run deep, but with courage and compassion, you can transform your relationship with self and others. Define your essence outside of acts of service and external validation. Experiment with boldly claiming your worth through rest, play, and creative work just for you. Small steps unravel generations old wiring in time. You are safe, accepted, and loved for who you are, not what you can do. Keep going, one no, an act of self-care at a time. You've got this. Notice body signals when you feel unable to say no. Are you tensing up? Holding breath? Feeling tension headaches? These physical cues can reveal repressed needs. Explore your emotions when you overgive. Do you feel depleted, resentful, frustrated? Honoring these feelings helps reclaim your boundaries. Release the illusion of control. You cannot control how others respond when you claim your needs. Learn to detach from people-pleasings aimed to dictate others' reactions. Identify your inner critic's voice. Is it a parent, authority figure, old messages? Develop your inner nurturer's voice to counter criticism when asserting yourself. Seek professional support to build true self-esteem. This takes time and guidance to change core wiring and establish new relationship habits. Forgive yourself for old patterns. No one taught you self-worth growing up. Have compassion for the scared, unhealed parts, still seeking safety through pleasing. Stand tall, take up space. Speak your needs clearly. Make eye contact when communicating. Align your energy with deserving to be seen and heard. Limit time with toxic personalities who exploit your kindness. You teach others how to treat you. Energy spent futilely pleasing narcissists depletes the soul. Create nourishment rituals, cook favorite healthy meals, take bubble baths, light candles, lounge without work or entertainment. Receive your own love through mindful relaxation. Set manageable goals each day. Start with something small, like spending 15 minutes doing an activity purely for you, even if it feels self-indulgent. Build up gradually. You've got this. One baby step back home to yourself, then another. Keep going, a joyful, loving life awaits.
Unlock the power of pleasing people, triumph over narcissistic abuse. Curious about specific topics? Share in the comments or email us. Your input matters, and we'll include your ideas in our next video. Subscribe now to empower survivors and be part of the positive change. Share to protect others and spread healing vibes. Exciting new videos every Friday. Stay tuned.